Welcome in. We've got a great show and a live audience. Here we go. Steve, we got another live audience again.
I can't believe we got any more than one person who decided to come.
We've got a great audience of people who are here at our National Prophecy Conference for the Friends of Israel in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Who loves Lancaster, Pennsylvania? Yeah, a rowdy crowd, Steve.
What are you going to do?
That's
it's the
right.
Jew and the Gentile podcast. It goes along.
So we've got a great show lined up for you. Great guests. We're taking a little break from what we've been doing, our series. But before we do that, here we go. Welcome in, welcome in. Well, like I said, we have a live audience today, and we're going to be doing...
That's certainly better than dead.
That's exactly right. We're glad we're all
audience.
Live. That's
They're
right.
alive.
And just stay alive during the whole podcast, please, too.
Please.
So we have a great show lined up. We've got special guests all throughout the podcast. We'll be looking at our news of the day and then finally our Yiddish word of the day. Steve, let's talk about what's going on at our National Prophecy Conference here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Well, Chris, we have the 7 Feasts of Israel. And we've been here at Lancaster. We started last night. And it couldn't have gone worse, actually. I mean, we had just about everything that could go wrong did go wrong. We had a frozen computer. We had temperatures in the room over 75 degrees and 450 people here. We had a mixer that didn't work. We had a door that every time somebody came in, you thought, hey, it's crazy. It made creaks and sounds, and everything that could go wrong did go wrong.
Wait a minute. You kind of sound like the Israelites coming out of Egypt a little bit.
I've been practicing. I got the genes of 3,000 years ago.
That's right. I hear all the complaints here.
Kvetching.
Yeah.
Kvetching.
That's right, exactly.
We kvetch. But the audience last night was fantastic, very cooperative.
There you go. They stuck around.
Yes, they held out.
Almost 500 people, I think, Steve.
That's right. Oh, you like to stretch the numbers.
Of course.
Again, just like one of our people. Oh, it was 80 degrees. Not if Chris is talking. It was 95.
That's right. Round up.
But we said, I believe that God had something big planned, and so far, people have come up to me and said, that thing was a minor thing. I've been blessed. I'm learning. I'm growing. People are taking notes, Chris. They're taking notes from our messages.
That's right. Did they take notes from yours, though?
No.
No, okay.
No, not at all.
Only from Bruce Scott. I know
Scott,
they
took notes.
Yeah, all the time.
I know they took notes from Dan. I know they took notes from Jim. When I got up, people threw away their pens.
Bupkis.
Bupkis. That's right.
Okay. Well, we're studying the 7 Feasts of Israel. If you are a regular listener to the podcast, we had our live audience last time we were in Winona Lake, Indiana, looking at the 7 Feasts.
This crowd's got to beat them out, Chris.
I'm telling you.
That's right.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
And Chris, you know something? We're coming up to 1 year. They said it wouldn't last. 1 year.
The naysayers.
The naysayers, all 2 of them.
That's... Yeah, we are coming up. This is our 51st episode, I believe, of the podcast. Next week is our 1st year anniversary. We've got some things lined up, some ideas brewing up in these 2 heads of ours.
Yeah, we've never used more than an hour to prepare anyway, so why should we do anything different?
It takes longer to set up the equipment than to get ready for this show. But anyway, so we have a great show lined up because we've got an exciting lineup of panelists and speakers and guests. And so I'll actually ask our first guests to come up, Yael and Irit. If you'll come up, give them a round of applause.
Give them a hand.
Hello, friend. How are you?
We are doing fine.
Okay.
Hello.
So, Yael, Irit, you are our worship leaders for the conference this week.
No passion, Chris. These girls have no passion whatsoever.
There's zero passion up at this table right now.
Zero.
Yeah.
In fact, I saw them when they were singing. We had now Yael is on the keyboard, but her fists were going like this. She was ready to jump. Honestly, it was amazing. And Irit was down on her knees and bending up like this. I'm telling you, it was fantastic.
I love it.
We need energy.
Well, let's talk about your relationship, you two, because you've been friends for a long time, and you did not meet in the United States of America. This isn't your home country. Where are you from?
No, definitely.
How did you meet?
We're both from Israel, both born and raised in Jerusalem for the most part. Me for the more part, and you for the less part. You also had a stint in Haifa.
That's true.
Okay,
For some years.
we're not going to talk about
we're born
that, right?
But yeah, I think our families go back before I was born, at least. She's
Oh,
a little
really?
bit older than me.
Okay, we're not
Tiny
just a
bit.
tiny bit. We're not going to say the exact
Nope,
amount
nope,
of time.
nope,
we don't
we
want to
don't
date
need
you
to.
two. Okay, great. You're dateless. Okay, so when you guys, I didn't realize you guys grew up together then.
True.
So when did the music and the worship happen together? That's interesting. I thought maybe you guys had, or you two had met at some point and then started doing worship together, but you grew up together.
Yeah,
That's right.
Her older sister is named Yael. My mom, when she came to Israel, heard that name. She said, if I ever had a daughter, I would call her Yael as well. So
Wow,
there you go.
there you
That's
go.
how far back we go. And then about, when was it, 2010, that's when the worship center that Irit had the vision of starting. That's when it started. And being already good friends back then, I'm like, okay, you can never do numbers to save your life. So I'll do the numbers and the administration, and you'll do the art and
That was the
artistic.
deal.
Yeah.
Oh, that's,
So-
and because you two had a ministry together too, Erie. Can you talk about the ministry that you two had together?
That's right. So the ministry called Yuval, we're not part of it anymore. It continued by the grace of God, and that's awesome. But over there, we got to teach children and adults, teenagers about worship and worshiping God through all kinds of instruments, singing and dancing and drama and all different ways, creative ways to worship God, and teaching them what's the meaning of worship, basically. So we've done that for 10 years, and then God opened different other ways.
What does Yuval mean? I mean, there's a meaning to that when it comes to the organization that you two built.
That's right. Yuval first mentioned in the book of Genesis as the first musician, probably Jubal in English, I assume. And then also it mentions one more time in the book of Jeremiah, 17 speaks about the man who trusts the Lord. He is like a tree, and his roots are going into Yuval, which is stream of water. So that was the vision of this school, of this ministry and center. People will come, put the roots in the living water of Yeshua, and grow and bear fruit through the talents and gifts that he gave them.
Was it just believers that you were ministering to through this music, or were there unbelievers as well, young Israeli kids coming from both the church and from other avenues as well?
Yeah, we had believers who come because it was people who knew us and churches around Jerusalem for the most part. But we did have a whole bunch of kids that came that were not from non-believing families. One of them was a very sweet Orthodox family, actually. Loved the kids, they loved us, they trusted us, and so there was a relationship there, and that's why they wanted to come. They got a good teaching of their instruments, but also a good relationship with us. So.
And a few Muslim families as well.
Really?
From Abu Ghosh, that area.
Wow.
But yeah, so that was awesome. Reaching out with the gospel to those kids.
Yeah, music is just such a great way to connect with people. You know, especially when you just want to be able to begin a relationship and have the conversations about God. I've always learned ESL, English as a second language, is always a great way to minister to people and be able to use the Bible as a way to connect. But then even music is another great way to communicate that. That's fantastic. Steve, you have any thoughts?
Well, I just wanted to ask you about your music here at the conference. I've noticed that the music coincides with the speaker and really have appreciated that. Did you do a lot of planning? Was that the providence of God? How did that work?
We did plan a little bit more than an hour before the...
That doesn't say much.
Oh, that was a good one. Oh, yeah, Elle was waiting for that. But it's true. It actually, as a speaker, it's wonderful. When, in my case, it was at the end. For other speakers, it was at the beginning to prepare the congregation. It's been amazing. We really appreciate that music and the thought behind it. How's it gone so far for you as worship leaders here at the conference?
We enjoy it so much, and we enjoy the feedback that we also get.
Oh, you'll get feedback from this group.
They're amazing, honestly. And I think one of the things that we've noticed throughout the years of ministering together is that there's something about when the power of God's word meets the power of music, it does something to our hearts. And I just believe that God created it that way, to reach our hearts in a way that just spoken word, it does that as well, but not in the same way. So this is why we're trying as much as we can to infuse the two together so that we hear a message and then the music kind of seals it in our hearts. Or on the other way, we open the heart to receive the message that the speaker shares.
It's been fantastic. Hasn't been great so far?
Praise God.
And that's why we asked you two to come up and sing a song for us, if you wouldn't mind. So I'll turn it over to you, and we're looking forward to it. So a cappella, I believe. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll do a cappella.
There we go. So take it away.
As we were talking about the different feasts and everything, the one anchor to me that glues everything is the love of Jesus and the love of God through Jesus to us. And so we wanted to share this song called "Oh, the Deep, Deep Love of Jesus" with you guys. And we'll sing it first in Hebrew and then continue on in English. So you'll have both verses in both Hebrew and English. All right?
עומק אהבת ישוע נשגבה מלב אדם ים ברכות אדיר רב עומק מי מרגוע מי שלווה עומק אהבת ישוע עדן אדנים מילי תישאני לתפארת תדריכני אל אלי עומק אהבת ישוע עדן אדנים מילי תישאני לתפארת תדריכני אל אלי Oh, the deep, deep love of Jesus, vast, unmeasured, boundless, free, in it rolling as a mighty ocean, in its fullness over me, underneath me, all around me is the current of thy love, leading onward, leading homeward to thy glorious rest above. Oh, the deep, deep love of Jesus, love of every love the best. 'Tis an ocean full of blessing, 'tis a heaven given rest. Oh, the deep, deep love of Jesus, 'tis a heaven of heavens to me, and it lifts me up to glory, for it lifts me up to thee, and it lifts me up to glory, for it lifts me up to thee.
Man, that was fantastic.
Ladies, thank you so much.
Wait. Website, do you have CD?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
We want to make sure that people can buy your stuff.
All right, so we have most of our stuff online under my name. That's Yael S. Kalisher, Yael with a J, S. Kalisher. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. There's a clip there as well, and we just released all of our music under my name.
And for our people here today, as we're doing this podcast, 6 o'clock in the marketplace, you're going to be there.
Right.
There you go.
And also be ready for another album coming soon. It's called Bo Eli, Come to Me, and it's scriptures from the Word of God about the peace of God. And we all need that these days.
That's
so it's coming up soon.
Amen. Great.
Ladies, thank you so much. You're
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Thank you, thank you,
guys.
thank you.
God bless.
Hey, Chris, before we have our next guest, we haven't talked about who podcast is sponsored by.
Well, you and I mean, my goodness,
We've gotta make
great
sure
minds
that we
think
do.
alike.
I don't know about that.
Well, I was going to say that Yael actually taught a class on Hebrew worship last February. Anybody get a chance to join that class? Yeah, a couple hands up for being able to go to that class. It was at our FOI Equip class in February, and Yael was amazing because she was in Israel, so she would wake up at 3 in the morning. 3 in the morning to teach a class. Think about that. I can't even get up at 3 in the morning to go exercise. She's teaching a class at 3 in the morning, and she was doing it for people all around the world who were tuning in to learn about Hebrew worship.
And they could still find that.
Exactly. All of her classes are on YouTube at our FOI Equip page on YouTube, but also it's the FOI Equip that sponsors the podcast as well, Steve. So if you want to learn how to understand the Bible from a Jewish perspective, go to foiequip.org. So, Steve, our next guests are...
Okay, you better button up your top button.
Oh, that's right. Here we go.
Make sure the socks are pulled up.
Socks are pulled up.
Our Yiddish word one time was macher.
That's
we
right.
got a double macher.
We got a double macher today. That's right. That means the big shot.
2 days.
2 Daves, that's right. We have Dave Benner and Dave Roach. If you two would please come up.
Come on up.
Give them a big round of
Give them a
round of
big
applause.
hand.
Come on, gentlemen.
Okay, be careful. Mind your P's and Q's, Chris, because this could be your last day.
This is my paycheck here, everybody, right here, okay? Hello, gentlemen. Good to see you.
How are you?
Dave and Dave. You guys, you don't have to forget Dave and Dave, okay? It's great. Dave Benner is the chairman of the board for Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry, and Dave Roach is he's a board member in Canada for our Canadian office as well. And so it's a joy to have you two with us. So how do you think the conference is going so far? And this isn't your first one either. This isn't your first rodeo. So Dave, Dave Benner, why don't you share your thoughts?
I think the conference is going great. It's so educational. It's just wonderful to be here with all of you in the audience and just to meet people and to get to know some of you, something about you and your lives. It's just a blessing. So thanks everybody for being here.
Dave Roach, how about you?
He came all the way down from Canada. From Toronto, outside of Toronto.
Yeah, we closed the door on the igloo when we left.
You're picking up the spirit of the podcast. I like it.
That's right.
Did you know, actually, there's a spot not too far from Waterloo where we live that is actually further south than the Northern California border.
Oh, really?
Interesting.
Just a little bit of geographic trivia for you today.
Canadian trivia there.
But the conference-wise, it's been wonderful. Judy and I have been coming down here for years to this conference. We look forward to it every year. Desperately missed it the last couple of years, but the education is phenomenal. The speakers are phenomenal. And it's just a pleasure and a joy and a blessing to be here, for sure.
Dave Benner, I'm interested. How did you get involved with Friends of Israel? And then I'm going to throw that question to you, Dave Roach. But how did you get involved with Friends of Israel? What drew you to Friends of Israel?
Well, it actually goes back to my salvation experience. Both Lois, my wife, and I were saved in 1981. We started to attend a church right down the street from our house. That church was very supportive and very involved with the Friends of Israel. That was our first experience. That happened to be the church where the second executive director, Marvin Rosenthal, was the pastor at one time. Not at the time that we attended, but prior to that, he was the pastor. He was the first pastor of that church. In fact, it was his only pastorate. Mm-hmm. When he then took the executive director role, he called some of the people there down to work with him. And so we got to know them, including Tom Simcox.
Yeah.
He attended that church. That was our first connection, and we've been involved ever since.
We love having... How long have you been the chairman of the board for Friends of Israel?
About 3 years now.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. How about you, Dave? How did you and your family get involved?
Well, we got involved actually through my wife, Judy. She was attending a Bible study at the time and picked up a copy of Israel, My Glory.
Yeah.
And basically that's where the story started. And we started becoming very interested in the Jewish culture and how it all related to the Bible and so on. And we ended up learning about the conferences, prophecy update conferences and so on, and started to attend those. And we've been coming here now we couldn't figure it out, somewhere between 5 and 10 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Coming down here, too, from
Yes.
Canada. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, we went to Winona once. That's too far.
Well, tell us, give us, from your perspective, what blessing have you received as you serve? Whenever we serve, we get blessed. And both of you on the boards of Canada. Well, in fact, Dave is on that board of Canada as well, Dave Benner. But what blessing have you received? How has God blessed you since you began to participate on the board with Friends of Israel? That question for both of you.
I would say that the blessings, they're multiple, obviously, but one of the things is just to see the ministry in action, to see God working through the people at the Friends of Israel, the quality of people that are there, the heart they have for the Jewish people. It's just been a blessing to me. And also, as I have grown in that ministry and learned more and more myself, that's been another blessing to me as we've learned more and more about how to witness to Jewish people, all the materials that are available, just delving into the scriptures. I cannot count the blessings.
So the ministry has had an impact on you even as you've grown as a result and learned from Friends of Israel's material. And
Absolutely.
folks.
I mean, when I first came on board with the Friends of Israel, I had to ask myself, really, what do I know about this? And as a member, I was interviewed by a team of people that scared the socks off of me. You know, Elwood McQuaid being one of them. I'm going to appear before Elwood McQuaid, and he's going to ask me questions about scriptures. What in the world do I know about that? Yeah. And so I guess I did all right because they took me anyway.
Yeah, you did great.
Yeah, you did great. Dave Roach, how about you?
Well, I had the same experience as Dave, except it was Bill Sutter.
Yeah.
But the ministry has just been a blessing. Getting to know the people within the ministry is certainly a blessing. Understanding much better how great the ministry is in terms of its evangelism and teaching and communication of biblical truths and their love for Israel as well.
You know, Steve, what excites me about this is that I think sometimes we forget that, you know, you two, you had careers, but you were invested in Friends of Israel and volunteered. You're still volunteering your through leadership with the Friends of Israel. And I just think about that with a lot of the people that are even here in this audience that would be willing to volunteer their time and their energy to help fulfill the mission of the Friends of Israel. That's so important, and we're seeing it in two of our very important leaders here. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for coming and being part of this. I really appreciate it.
Give them a hand. Give them a hand.
Before we go, we'd like to sing a song.
Oh, go right ahead. Go right.
A solo by him.
Oh, man, they're getting the spirit of the podcast.
I like it. Thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. Steve, what'd you think of that? Huh? We've never had board members before.
I am telling, and people are staying. Chris, no one's walked out so far.
I'm telling you, thank you, everyone, for staying.
It's amazing.
Well, is Mark Jenkins here? I just want to see if Mark... Oh, there he is. Yeah, Mark, come on up.
Come on, Mark.
As Mark is doing that, Mark, come on up. Mark has an exciting career to share with us about how he's been involved in helping support Israel and the Jewish people. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. I was listening for the microphones. This one is sounds a little better than that one.
Okay,
so
so you
put me on the right microphone.
He's a critic.
So thank you very much.
That's his job, though, Steve.
That's right.
That's right. Well, since you've picked out the right mic that sounds the best, why don't you tell people why you knew that mic was the best? What's your background?
I had a career in television. I started out coming out of college and went into television as a career. My family actually had a business in communications, but they sold communications equipment, radio and television equipment to radio and television stations. But I didn't like the idea of selling the equipment, so I liked playing with it. So I grew up playing with it. So I ended up with a degree in that and went into mass communications, and then worked ultimately working for the networks as a director of photography.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know that Mark Jenkins is a star for IMG?
Is he really?
Oh yeah, I had an interview. Did you know about that?
That's
Mark,
right.
Yes, I do.
That's right. People who, how many of you read me? Oh, I don't know. We could be in trouble, Mark. That maybe nobody read the magazine. But I interviewed Mark in an IMG article. Anybody read that article? Put up your hands.
There we go.
All right, we got
That
a
would
few
be my
people.
wife in the back.
There she is.
There you go.
I took her and showed her the article, and then one other person may be confused. But okay.
Well, that's humbling to us too. We put out the magazine. We put out a lot of stuff and wonder, is anybody out there?
Mark, so
that was great. That was great.
You have a background in TV stations, and you definitely know equipment. You've been helping us with equipment and whatnot for the new studio that's being built at Friends of Israel.
Yeah, that's very exciting, by the way. I mean, not to interrupt, but that's
please.
a great project.
It's a fantastic project that hopefully, we're going to be digging pretty soon to get that building up. We're investing a lot of money in a future studio for creating more content to share what's going on at Friends of Israel and our mission. But how did somebody who's involved in all the technical communications, things like that, come to have a heart for Israel and the Jewish people?
Wow, that's a really interesting question because, one of the things is, I think we're talking with Dave, who was just up here a few moments ago, when you start talking about how you end up in all of this Israel stuff, it's amazing when you hear people's story because a lot of people just never intended to be involved in it. Mm-hmm. And that was certainly my story. How do you end up doing the things that you're doing? And only the Lord could do that, because I didn't really, go into television with an idea that I'm going to serve the state of Israel or anything like that. You go into television, you follow a path you think you have some say over, and the Lord begins to shape things and take you in different directions. And as you get older, you can look back and see how that, God did shape that journey. But as far as Israel goes, my wife and I started taking people over to Israel back in the 1990s. And, at the same time, we took our television cameras over and produced some programming that we would air through our Christian broadcast ministry that we were working with at the time. And people liked the program. And we would go to Israel and we'd experienced that, but we thought that was kind of that. We thought that was it. And then as we began to, let's keep going back, and you kept going back for more and more trips. You realize that something's happening here. And you can hardly believe it, but you're really getting engaged in it. And so it's become a ministry. By the early 2000s, it had become we believed a real calling, not only to Israel but the Jewish people here and in Israel. Because one of the things that I shared when we talked before, my wife and I hail from Richmond, Virginia, and what's amazing is there's a very significant Jewish community there. So we grew up around this Jewish community, and a lot of Holocaust survivors actually.
You have a great ministry yourself. Yeah. You really have two of them.
Yeah.
One involves Shabbat.
That's right.
Shabbat. Wait, you're a Gentile. How's that possible? Shabbat.
Has anybody here ever celebrated Shabbat before in the audience? Oh, see,
that's my wife again.
Yeah, that was one.
All right.
Talk about your Shabbat meeting.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, one of the things that happened is, over the years, the more and more people began to accumulate in our community that had gone to Israel. A lot of people we had taken, but people who were on other trips as well. And I remember being approached by them over the years, like, well, let's have a trip reunion, or can we do something to sort of capture that feeling that we had when we were in Israel and learn more about Israel and really the kinds of things that Friends of Israel does, by the way, in all of their media. And so we were thinking, well, what could we do? And we tried a few trip reunions, but it wasn't quite enough. So we said, well, let's do this. Let's just plan a regular event once a month that we're going to have. We're going to put a stick pin in the schedule and say, we're just going to do something for Israel on this day. So what would that be? So we settled on the first Friday of every month, and the Friday is the Shabbat. So let's do a first Friday Shabbat. So we said we would do this, even if we're going to put this out there. If 50 people show up, great. We're not going to worry. We're just going to do it. And we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep doing it because I think that's the important part. we never had less than about 100, 150 people. I mean, it was people were coming, and again, not just people that we were taking to Israel. It was people that were from other churches that were looking for some kind of connection, and a regular connection. Yeah. And so how we structured it is that we basically imitated what you would see in a Jewish home for the Sabbath. And so we would say the blessings that go through the Jewish blessings. We would help them understand what those are.
You light the candles. You
we
do
light
Kiddush,
the candles.
You have the challah. The whole thing.
The whole thing. And we do that at the beginning. Then we have our meal, just like you would in the Jewish home. And then after the meal, sometimes interrupting the meal, depending on how long we've gone or how much we need to do that night, then we'll do a presentation.
Talk about Yad Vashem. This is exciting too for you, Mark. I mean, you do so much, but this is really one exciting one for you as well.
Well, Yad Vashem, that's an interesting story, and that sort of ties in with the media part of my life, and that is I was being in, I got to connect the dots on this for you. I went into television, but I was in secular television. I was working with different networks and agencies and things like that, primarily with NBC. But then I went from that into Christian television. So I went into Christian broadcasting. So I got involved with the national religious broadcasters and been very involved with them over the last 3 decades. And so I got invited to go to Israel with the American Israel Education Foundation, and I and several board members from the national religious broadcasters went to Israel, and guess where we went? They took us to Yad Vashem. It just so happened that when we went to Israel, we were there during Yom HaShoah, so the ceremony for the heroes and martyrs of the Holocaust, as they would describe it. Mm-hmm. But what was interesting to us is we were sitting there, those of us that were in the NRB, as we were sitting there and we were watching this ceremony. If you've ever seen it, we were watching the survivors give testimony to what they had endured and survived. We saw a nation mourning, and it was unbelievably touching. And the reaction that I had was immediately why is this not seen all over the world? Why, we're trying to deny this happened. Why is this not seen all over the world? So I asked the folks that were our hosts at Yad Vashem, is this thing broadcast outside of the state of Israel? What are you doing with this? They have cameras. They're broadcasting it in Israel, their ceremony, the official ceremony for the Holocaust every year. And they didn't understand me. And so they were like, not the language. It was like they didn't really know what I was asking. But they said, no, it's only seen in Israel. And so as it turns out, we put a deal together, working with the leadership of NRB.
A deal.
And the first time the ceremony was ever seen outside the state of Israel was that year. I think that was 2012. Then the very next year, we shared it with broadcasters and started adding countries around the world.
Wow.
And so it's broadcast all over the world now.
How can our people here connect with that?
It's broadcast on the NRB TV network, which is on DirecTV. I believe it's channel 378. It's on a number of other Christian broadcast stations as well. We turned it over. And by the way, we did it as a mitzvah. Good. So the great thing is that we did it all through our ministry. It was just whatever the costs were for translations, re-editing, repackaging the program.
Wow.
Israel gets a great deal.
So we did it all as a mitzvah, which was great because then when we went to other broadcasters, we said, listen, understand, this is an agency. Nobody's making money on this.
Yeah.
If you love Israel and you want to do this, you put it on your station. You put it on your station. And so that's what we did.
So
Fantastic.
when you all see when you see this broadcast on TV,
A Nation Remembers. A Nation Remembers. You can actually go to a website that was set up for it and see the broadcast from the previous year.
then you'll know the man who's married to it, right?
Yes, I'm married to it.
Mark, thank you so much
Give him a
for
hand.
being with us.
Chris, we are getting a little bit of everything here.
We
This
really
is
are.
amazing.
It's definitely a good time. I would like to ask, we have just a few moments left for our two guests, but would Bruce and Janet Scott please come up and be a part of this great, give it up for Bruce and Janet. Here.
Now, Chris, I need to say we're so thankful that, Bruce, he had to come up. He works with Friends of Israel, and I told him to come up. But Janet didn't have to come up. And it's those of you who are shy, are there anybody out there who's a little shy? honestly, Janet is willing to do this for the Lord Jesus Christ, and I am so thankful. She doesn't want to be here. I don't blame her. My wife in the back, I could never get her to do it, even if I said it's for
Alice
Jesus.
wouldn't do it. Yep.
Yeah, no, Alice would just say, forget about it. But Janet didn't. And welcome, Janet. Thank her for coming. And we're going to start off, Janet. I just want you to talk about your background is Jewish as well. You grew up in Chicago. Tell us a little bit about your background. And real quick, from the background you came to, how in the world do you end up here?
That was a long time ago, and I think I can remember it. I was raised in a Jewish home. Both of my parents were raised in Orthodox homes, but after they got married, they were a little more on the conservative to the Reform side. So we celebrated the Jewish holidays at home, Hanukkah and Passover, and we went to the synagogue on the high holidays. I went to a Jewish Sunday school, and for many years, and once or twice a week, and instead of getting bat mitzvahed, I had a confirmation, and my brother had a bar mitzvah. And so after that, that was in my high school years. And I found that going to the synagogue and being with the family with the holidays was a warm type of a feeling, but at the same time, I felt like in my own life there was something missing and something that wasn't fulfilling for me. And I'd never learned the Hebrew, and part of our services were in Hebrew, but they did have the translation on the other side of the page, so I did read those.
How did you come to faith in the Lord then, in that growing up in the Jewish home and family going to Passover, Hanukkah at the synagogue and such?
Yes, in many Jewish homes like mine, even though we weren't extremely religious, we knew that Jesus was not an option. Jesus wasn't for the Jewish people. Jesus was for the Gentiles. So I didn't even consider that for myself, and we never talked about it at home. It was unspoken, yet we knew that Jesus wasn't for us. One day, after I graduated high school, went to college, wasn't religious at all, didn't do much at all, except for when I came home. And my grandfather had passed away, and after the funeral, during the Shiva time, my cousins, we all went out for a bite to eat together, and they started talking about religion, and they were talking about Jesus and kind of weigh out ideas about Jesus. Could Jesus be a woman? Could Jesus, or the Messiah? They were just saying strange things that it was over my head. And sitting next to me was my cousin, Lana, and she was making a few comments, and some of those, she was saying some things like she had known something about Jesus. And so that was kind of interesting to me. A few months later, I got a call from her, and she invited me to a Bible study.
Wow.
Oh, man.
The Bible study.
Yeah. And just briefly, my cousin Lana met a young woman. I was 24 at this time. So she met a young woman on the train on the way to downtown Chicago to work. This young woman was having her devotional time, and Lana was sitting next to her. They started getting to know each other, started becoming friendly, and this girl's name was Dawn. And Dawn asked if Lana wanted to get together to eat, and so they would get a bite to eat after work and started becoming friends. And Dawn asked Lana at one point if she would like to have a Bible study. And Lana said, you're not going to convert me, I'm Jewish, so don't even try. But eventually there was something about the interest that she had that they started having one, and through that, this person knew her scriptures, she knew the Old Testament, she knew how to share the qualifications for the Messiah and the prophecies. And my cousin Lana became a believer in her Messiah.
Amazing. Bruce, when I first, Janet, I've known Bruce for 2 decades. I've known Janet for a very long time. And when I first saw Janet at the conference, I went up and I gave her a hug and I said, "Do you still like me or do you hate me?" And she, why? Well, because we've had Bruce on a wild goose chase all summer long. Bruce, why don't you share all the places that you've been? And poor Janet has been at home in Phoenix. And that's why anytime he goes somewhere, it's usually our fault.
It is our fault.
And then, so anyway.
We're blamed for everything anyway, so it might as well be true.
It's our fault. So I said, "Janet, she said, I still like you." So thank you, Janet, for still being my friend. But Bruce, tell everybody where you've been over this summer and maybe ways people can get involved too, because it's very important.
Well, it's not completely all your fault because I do say yes. But as I shared this morning, we have programs with Friends of Israel that enables believers to get involved and experience Jewish ministry. So at the beginning of June, we had our 5-day encounter trip, which goes to New York City, Philadelphia, New Jersey area. And then about 3 days after that, the Assistant Director of Program Ministries, Cameron Joyner, and I led our Origins group to Israel for 19 days, where we volunteered there with Lekat Israel, which is the National Food Bank for Israel. Had a great team of young adults, just had a wonderful time. And then came back from that about June 9th, towards the end of June. And then shortly after that, we took another encounter group to New York. And then we just finished at the end of August another encounter group of shepherds.
Are you following this, people? It's crazy.
It's like
the last one was shepherds. So it was we geared it, designed it specifically for pastors and ministry leaders. And for some of them, what they experienced was brand new to them, and it just really opened their eyes. And they were very excited about it and want to bring it back to their congregations.
So basically, Bruce has been to New York, Philadelphia, New Jersey, Israel, New York, Philadelphia, New Jersey, and then back for round 3 to New York, Philadelphia, New Jersey. And you also threw in a trip to Florida to help your son move down to Florida.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, after...
Yep, see?
It's all a blur, Bruce.
Yes, it is. After Origins, we came back, and a few days later, Jan and I helped our son and daughter-in-law and little baby move down to Florida.
And 2 dogs.
And 2 dogs. Oh, yeah. Can't forget the dogs.
This is actually the first.
Hit the oy vey.
Yeah, exactly. This is the first time Janet has actually seen Bruce in like 4 months. So no, I'm joking.
I had to reintroduce myself.
That's right. I want to thank you two so much for being with us. Thank you for sharing your testimony, Janet. It's so important.
Janet. We're so thankful.
Yes, give it up for Bruce and Janet. All right, we've only got a few moments left, everybody. Why don't we transition to the news? Steve, you found some great news articles.
I forgot.
Well, we talked about the fact that the Queen has just recently died.
That's right. The Queen has died, and they're having a big to-do. It's a big tzimis, which is Yiddish for something big's going on, and there should be. But there's an opinion piece in the Jerusalem Post, Chris, about... what would her title be? Alice's title. Not my wife Alice's title, but...
Princess Alice.
Princess Alice is actually buried near the Mount of Olives.
That's King Charles III's grandmother. So King Charles, who's about to become King Charles, his grandmother is buried...
He is King Charles.
He is King Charles. Sorry about that. He is King Charles. His grandmother is buried on the Mount of Olives.
Not very far from the Mount of Olives. And the whole piece in the article, Jerusalem Post, and by the way, you will be linking the news item when it goes out, and make sure you do that. And in this piece, you'll find out that in essence, what the royal family is saying, they are, without using the terms, but it's fair to say, Christian Zionists.
Yeah.
She was buried there because her heart is with the Jewish people, and the reason so is because Jesus, Jesus was Jewish.
Yeah,
and
go
she
figure.
Knew that. She knew that.
Yeah, go figure. Christian Zionism actually has its roots in England, in the UK. It was 1917 that played a very big role in the establishment of the State of Israel. That was the Balfour Declaration, and that's around this time that Princess Alice is alive. She's witnessing all these things as well. Share about that really quick.
Not only that, General Allenby, who was the general approaching Jerusalem as it was about to be transferred from the Turks to England, and he was a believer himself. He was on a white steed, as I'm told, as I've read, and he got off his horse, and he said, you know, if the Lord Jesus Christ, this is the city of where my Lord was crucified, I'm not coming in on a horse. I'm going to walk in.
Wow.
What an amazing story. And yeah, Great Britain played a key role in the ultimate establishment of the nation of Israel. You see, God was working in England, and then it shifted to the United States. And Chris, it might be shifting again. We're in shaky ground here in the United States, but we hope and pray that America stands with Israel.
Let's talk really quick about the next article, which is something you found from the Times of Israel, about the fact that Israel is currently helping with the Ukraine war. We've just learned that Ukraine has pushed Russia back and acquired several hundred square miles, maybe even thousands of square miles of territory again on the Russia-Ukraine border. So they're having successes there. And what they need more than ever is weapons, weapons, weapons. And Israel is actually helping, but maybe people don't know about that so much.
Kind of undercover. We've talked in our podcast about how Israel has strong ties with Russia, but doesn't want strong ties. They have it, but they don't want it. And they try to stay out of the war itself, but have supplied a humanitarian goods to Ukrainian people. Well, a private company in Israel has the technology to defeat some of the drones that Russia has. And so what's happened, the government is kind of going like this, Chris. They're putting up their hands saying, what we don't know won't hurt us. Yeah. So go, sei gesund, don't tell us. And you could get that technology to them and ultimately... You could get that technology to them so that could help the Ukrainians overcome the Russians.
They're bringing this technology not right into Ukraine, but into Poland.
Through Poland.
And Poland into Ukraine.
So it's not direct to Russia.
Yeah, because Israel had some tough... it wasn't tough. It was an interesting place to be in early in the war with Ukraine and Russia because the former Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, tried to make himself a mediator between Russia and Ukraine. So he didn't want to step on Putin's toes. He didn't want to step on Zelensky's toes. But then Putin's administration started saying really anti-Semitic things, which ultimately, I think, turned the administration against Russia.
Well, Russia's been helping Israel and the Syrian in the country of Syria to keep the border calm, and that's it really has to do with Israel's security. So they're trying not to get involved militarily. But even with this, they just said, what we don't know won't hurt us, so don't tell us anything, and deal with Poland.
All right, here we go, everybody. We're going to transition one more time to do you know what this section is? This section is called the Yiddish Word of the Day. Here we go. There we go.
I think they're getting tired, Chris. We've gone a long time. How long is this?
This is 1 hour. Hey, here we go. This is it, though. The last thing. Steve, Yiddish Word of the Day. Go for it.
The Yiddish Word of the Day is Pisk. P-I-S-K, Pisk. You know what it means?
What does it mean? I know what it means, but go ahead.
It means loudmouth.
There you go.
Who here is a loudmouth? Oh, I'm a loudmouth.
I'm a loudmouth, too. That's why we did Pisk.
We should be called the Jew and the Gentile Pisk.
The Pisk program. That's Pisk, exactly the hot air.
Pisk program.
That's the Yiddish Word of the Day, everybody. It's Pisk. Thank you so much for being with us and joining us on the Jew and Gentile podcast. Hey, listen, we can't do it without you. Thank you so much. Be sure to join us for more Jew and Gentile podcasts. You can go to foiequip.org, FOI Equip, where you can find all of the resources you need in order to do a study the Bible from a Jewish perspective. Again, that's foiequip.org. We've got some great, exciting upcoming classes. Dr. Jim Showers will be sharing about the history of Friends of Israel, and yours truly will be teaching about intertestamental history between the Testaments. So you can find out all this information, how you can register for all these free classes. Thank you so much.
And finally, we're off the air.
We're off the air. Have a good one, everybody.